Classic WoW isn't just an older version of World of Warcraft. It feels like a journey back to a time when Azeroth felt alive. And for those that played before, it drips with nostalgia. But the game seems to capture even those who never played before, so what's the deal? Why does Classic WoW still continue to capture the hearts of players, both new and old, after 20 years? Is it the slower pace, the reliance on others and the community, or is it a genuine sense of adventure and exploration? Well, I think it's all of the above and more. Let's dive into what makes Classic WoW fun. Let's start with the pace of the game. It's slow, like really slow. But Classic WoW's slower pace is actually a positive defining characteristic. Leveling takes time, quests require effort through reading and attention, combat is slower and punishes mistakes and recklessness, even traveling demands patience. This forces players to explore the world thoroughly, even if you are trying to just rush to max level. Learning the ins and outs of the world is required to progress, and that fosters a sense of immersion. Every level, every success, and every victory is earned. On the topic of fostering a sense of immersion, Classic WoW truly embraced class fantasy, which is the distinctiveness of each class from one another. For example, in modern WoW, hunters can shoot about 200 arrows a second in perpetuity. I mean, where the hell are they keeping all these arrows? Well, in Classic WoW, hunters had arrows, but you had to manage your quivers and your ammo pouches and your ammo and your arrows, and doing so added a sense of realism that made you feel like a true marksman. You had to get new ammo at certain levels, which gave huge damage increases for you. And you had to feed your pet. Imagine that. Paladins had awesome short-duration seals requiring active reapplication, and advanced paladins could seal twist, changing your seals in a certain rhythm with your melee swings and server ticks, allowing the paladin to hit with the power of 2 seals at the same time. Wielding the light felt like a real thing, not to mention that they were alliance-specific, which really added to the uniqueness of the class and made you feel special when you were playing a paladin. For priests, every single race that could be a priest had a unique racial ability, and they seemed to tie into the specific race's culture or them being devout in their own branch of faith and devotion to the light. Like how a dwarf priest had Fear Ward, which was an awesome buff, or an undead priest had Devouring Plague. There's way more than these examples, and I can honestly make a whole video on class fantasy, but there's a second part to this whole piece. No class could do it all. Most classes didn't have an interrupt. Most classes didn't have a resurrect. Only 2 classes could reasonably tank. So to actually have all the utility that you needed to complete a dungeon boss or a raid, your group composition mattered, and it also tied in with the themes of the classes. Speaking of needing the right group composition, that required a lot more social interaction in Classic WoW than it does in modern WoW. And Classic WoW's reliance on player interaction fostered meaningful relationships. There was no dungeon finder. You had to actually talk to people to form dungeon groups, often building lasting friendships along the way, and maybe even making a guild out of those friends that you played with. Players relied on each other for buffs, for summons, crafting, and even survival in contested zones. This reliance on others encouraged cooperation. This sense of interdependence is absent in modern WoW, as most things can be found easily on the auction house or on Wowhead, or those buffs will come as just baseline class abilities or passive effects anyway. One absolutely huge thing that I think is forever lost and will never come back even with fresh classic servers is realm identity. Every realm had its own community, its own guild rivalries, alliances, and Barons chat. If you logged on daily, you'd start to recognize the same names in trade chat, or you'd notice the guild names out in the world while you were playing. This was lost when battle groups were created, when cross-server play was introduced, and services like Discord were made widely available for free. Now the community exists mostly outside of the game, rather than inside of it. Now I want to touch on my most favorite part of Classic World of Warcraft. That's the secrets, the hidden gems, or what I like to just call the leftovers. These are all extremely special and exciting for me, and all of these have mostly been removed or finished in a half-assed way in modern WoW. In Classic WoW, there are plenty of unused and hidden places, like the original Mount Hyjal zone, where you can find this Blizzard construction sign and Archimonde skeleton in the World Tree. There's also the Karazhan Crypts, the first raid that Blizzard ever designed, yet never finished. There's the Troll Village outside Moonglade, which is inaccessible except through clever means like a mage slow falling. Then there's the Hellfire Peninsula beta test remnants in the Dead Mines. Even still today, you can see those. There were entire unfinished zones and continents. I mean, the Emerald Dream existed in Classic WoW, and it was bigger and actually looks a lot cooler than what we got in Dragonflight. All this unfinished content sparks curiosity for me and a deep sense to keep exploring. Environmental storytelling was more present in Classic WoW. In fact, I have a whole video on that right here. Small details out in the world, like abandoned camps or mysterious ruins, null tents that had human faces stitched on it. All these small details encourage players to talk about Azeroth's lore and what could have happened in certain places, especially when it wasn't explicitly told through quests or grandiose cinematic main campaigns. 20 years later, I still try and find new, weird, or unexplored areas of the game where there may be some leftovers from a time long gone. The final thing I'll like to touch on here is the concept of player agency. The two contributing factors to this are the difficulty of Classic WoW compared to Modern, and the player-driven in-game economy. Let's start with the economy. Classic WoW's economy was entirely player-driven, which Modern WoW has streamlined away through excessive ease of use of the auction house with add-ons, professions becoming mostly meaningless, and gold being able to be bought with real money using WoW tokens. Of course, it could always be bought with real money, just not legally. In Classic WoW, gold mattered more. Players farmed diligently for mounts and consumables, and really you always felt strapped for cash. Hell, I even remember being a plate wearer and hearing other plate wearers complaining about the cost of gear repairs. Professions mattered more in Classic WoW. Alchemy, engineering, and blacksmithing all offered unique benefits that were integral to progression. Most of the gear upgrades you'd get off the auction house didn't come from enemy drops, but from crafted items. Whether it was a new weapon or a new pair of boots, your guild members would also maybe gift these to you. In terms of the harder difficulty, I touched a little bit earlier on the idea of a slower pace and every victory needing to be earned. Besides just the pace of combat though, the general difficulty is much greater in Classic WoW. Here's a clip of me in Modern WoW as a level 10 aggroing like 15 enemies and using 2 AoE abilities to kill all of them pretty easily. Then I just group loot them all, mount up at level 10, and start grouping up the next pack. In Classic WoW, especially depending on your class, aggroing more than one enemy at a time was a death sentence. Furthermore, there was no instant gratification in Classic WoW. There were really no easy ways to obtain items, there was no easy way to obtain gold legally, no easy way to win fights. Everything had to be earned, either through group effort, concentration and game knowledge, or through hours of farming. In short, Classic WoW prioritizes the journey over the destination. Every moment matters, every victory feels earned, and every person feels important and distinct. Classic WoW still offers something truly special to us all, a chance to escape and lose yourself in another living, breathing world. And that is what makes Classic WoW fun. Thanks for watching. I'll see you next time. Take care.